Just on that, Carl, just a quick one. Just thoughts of how regularly or how often do you have to almost like reassess the building? So let's say you've done it 1 year and you've got your 5 stars or your 5.5 stars. How long does that actually last for before you then, not legally, but you go back and sort of retest it? Is that up to the decision of the building owner or the occupier? How does that work?
So it's a really good question, Leon. So NABERS is voluntary in the majority of the sectors that we're in. So that means that an owner can redo the rating whenever they want, but the ratings do not last forever. So they last for 1 year, and if you let that certificate expire, you're not allowed to actually call yourself a 4.5 star NABERS rating. You can't promote it anywhere. You can't put it on your sustainability report. And that's by design. Actually, designing NABERS to be, it's a relatively low cost rating tool, because the main thing that you're looking at every year is energy bills. So it's relatively easy data to obtain, but it's designed so people, to encourage people to look at their energy performance every year, to set annual targets, to make sure that they maintain their performance every year, and to also go, well, you're 7% away from your next star rating. You know, you're 3 stars today. If you reduce energy in the next 12 months by 7%, you can get to 3.5 stars. There's so many buildings that can get that 7% with no capital investment, just by looking at turning things off at night, doing some changes of controls, maybe getting a little bit better about how do you set temperature set points and how you monitor them. We've seen a lot of buildings, for example, realizing, hey, people after 4 p.m., you start systematically losing occupants in the office. But if you're heating at the same rate, and you don't account for that, literally what happens is the temperature starts going up. So you're kind of like overheating. Well, maybe we're going to heat up until like 4 p.m. and then we're going to surf all the way to the end, because we know that the temperature is not really going to break the uncomfortable level. So you start seeing a lot of like little tweaks that you would never do that if you were focusing on an EPC, because the energy performance certificate is about, you know, what windows do you have and what kind of insulation and like physical attributes. So it doesn't encourage you to look at your management and improving and getting that 7%. Whereas in a NABERS rating, we see facility managers doing things that are super non-sexy. This is the least sexy thing in sustainability. Doing a night audit, which is literally walking into a building at midnight and looking at what is on in this office building in the middle of the night, because the answer should be nothing or hardly anything, but the answer is never that in practice. So a lot of buildings just let's go in the middle of the winter, what's on? 30% of the load is on. Why is that? Can we reduce that to like 10%? And then often what you find is like, oh yeah, all these things that are working now, they don't have to be running. Can we change the control? So literally the cost of that is a consultant for a few hours, a little bit of your mechanical contractor for controls doing a few tweaks. We've seen buildings saving 20 or 30% with no capital changes, exactly the same equipment. Maybe a little bit more attention from the facility manager from that point. And we've seen that across hundreds and hundreds of buildings. So it's not like one building that happened to be out of whack. And I think we often forget that really big buildings, the efficiency of a pump or the individual fan is actually way less important than how all those equipments are working together. Like in an air conditioning heating system, you're gonna have tens of pumps, hundreds of fans, compressors, all of them working together. You can be literally heating and cooling the same space at the same time, which kind of tells you that it doesn't matter how efficient that equipment is. If you're heating and cooling at the same time, you can be infinitely inefficient. You can use infinite amount of energy. And I think that is, to me, what's really important to remember is that this is big buildings are complex machines. Every building is an ad hoc machine that somebody built in long distant past, and no one remembers anymore how the building is meant to operate. So looking at the performance like it is a living machine that needs to be managed, and that there's lots of savings to be taken there, but you need to pay attention and look for them, is something that we're really trying to encourage with this annual cycle of certification.